Five nights ago, at exactly 7:45 p.m., Fort McCoy in Wisconsin was devastated by two dinosaurs who are suspected to have some sort of an unknown disease. This attack resulted in the deaths of 95 of Wisconsin's soldiers. More on the story as it develops. Zach turned the news channel off in an uninterested fashion as his brother and his girlfriend took the remote from him. He did not want it, as he was mainly focused on his phone. His eyes latched onto the small screen in his hands, took his attention away from the voices of Gray and Jan as they turned the news channel back on. He did not truly understand what was so great about these animals. They were taking up space just about everywhere in the world, and he certainly did not know what his brothers saw in them. Gray, however, paid his brother no mind as he and Jan listened to more news reports. Another report of similar attacks confirms that there are more dinosaurs with the traits listed beforehand. Such locations of attack include Seattle, Yellowstone Park, Fort Lewis, Seward Resort, and Camp Gruber. The dinosaurs involved in these attacks have been listed as Carnotaurus, Allosaurus, Ceratosaurus, Giganotosaurus, and Dilophosaurus. Other reports list ferry boats on the Mississippi River being torn to pieces by an unknown creature. No evidence has been given as to what could have caused this attack. Dilophosaurus? Jen asked as she watched the report. But wasn't that one of the species that were rescued when the island blew up? I didn't even see them when me and Zach were there. Gray seemed more confused than Jan as he watched the screen. There weren't any exhibits for them or anything. What about that Ceratosaurus? Well, Aunt Claire said they were on Isla Sorna. Isla Sorna? The breeding grounds. Site B. Aunt Claire told us about it after we left the island. She told us after 2005, Sorna was bombed. Why? She says that they had their breeding grounds on Nublar, and this was before she cared about the dinosaurs. After that, Sorna was still populated by dinosaurs, but after Jurassic World, Dr. Wu disappeared and InGen said that everything on Sorna was extinct. Well, maybe they were wrong. Before anything else could be said about the matter on TV, a loud bang was heard. Immediately after, the screen was suddenly shut off. Everything electronic inside the house was cut off, setting the house into a tremendous darkened state. The two of them emitted frightened gasps at this happening. What happened? Jan asked. Don't know, Gray answered. Transformer must have blown or something. Hang on, let me find a flashlight. I think your brother's found one. The two of them turned to see Zach using his phone screen to brighten the room. The older brother was looking for flashlights as well. He opened up a drawer and pulled 3 out, handing 2 of them to Gray and Jan. He then turned and pulled out a small toolbox. Zach, Gray said, turning on his flashlight. What are you doing? Going to go check the fuse box, Zach answered nonchalantly. I'm going to go turn the power back on. I think I ought to do it, Gray stammered. Zach sighed in annoyance. Just because you're a genius doesn't mean you have to do everything. Or do you forget who Mom left in charge? No, I didn't forget. She left me in charge. Whatever, I'm gonna go turn the power back. You two brainiacs just stayed here until I get back. He then turned and walked out the back door. Gray shook his head and sighed. How long till your mom comes back? Jan asked him. Not for another 2 hours. Man, your brother uses a lot of hashtags. Zach used his flashlight to light his way as he walked through the park, to where he hoped to find the power box. It was a tremendous nuisance to him that his younger brother knew things he didn't. He and Jan Pfeiffer were the perfect match. The fact that all they wanted to talk about was dinosaurs didn't help that fact either. A light began to flick from the other side of the house. He walked around to see a street light that was flickering on and off next to the house. This confused Zach. Why would it be flickering when the whole power inside his house just went out? He could see the power box against the wall in the flickering light. He then pulled out a screwdriver from his toolbox and began to examine the little box. He kept his flashlight handy as the street light was still flickering on. It looked as if the wires inside of it were cut by something. This is weird, Zack thought. He simply shrugged slightly and continued to examine it. The sound from behind him caused him to turn around swiftly. He could not see anything behind him. He merely turned back to the power box and continued to work with the damaged wires. He tried to see what he could do to fix this. However, as many tools as he pulled out, he could not see how he could fix this. Dang it, he thought. How do I do this? It sounded closer this time. He turned around again to see what was making it. Then he heard it again. It sounded like it was coming closer to him, and it sounded big. He looked around frantically, but all he could see were the few pine trees that stood near their house. He shined his flashlight around to see if he could find whatever it was that sounded so close. He set his sights on a tree trunk close to him. Wait a minute. The trees around his home were covered in pine needles, covering up the trunks inside. There was no way that he could see the trunks of them so easily. And since when were trunks so scaly? He could hear something as well. It wasn't the thumping, which had already stopped. It sounded like breathing. Deep, raspy breathing. As he focused more on it, he noticed that it wasn't a tree trunk at all. He could see the clawed foot at the bottom. It was a leg, the leg of a dinosaur. Before he could shine the light higher, the creature roared a terrible roar at him, making his blood run cold. Oh gosh. He's sure taking a while out there, Jen said rather worriedly as she looked out a window. I don't see him anywhere. He's probably stuck just by looking at it, Grace sighed. You know how he is. Yeah, Jen answered. You think one of us should go out there and check on him? I don't see why not. The two of them then made their way over to the back door. Gray reached his hand to open the door when he saw Zack running into view. Get away! He yelled. Zack, what? Before Gray could say more, however, he saw a large shape running into view. The dinosaur swung its large head into Zack, sending him flying into the glass door. The glass was broken into 1,000 pieces as Zack laid on his stomach. Gray quickly helped him back up as Jen stared outside of the dinosaur. That thing can't get in here, Zack breathed as he stumbled around. Too big. That thing has a name, Jen said as a matter of factly. Carnotaurus. As fast as a bolt of lightning it happened. The head of the Carnotaur broke through the doorway, scattering debris of the wall everywhere. The dinosaur had broken into the house, its white, expressionless eyes gleaming as it growled in animalistic fury. It snapped its jaws shut just a few inches away from the three. Gray let out a yell as he bolted straight for the living room, followed by his brother and Jan. He could hear not only them yelling behind him, but the smashing of the Carnotaur behind them. They looked back and saw it rampaging through the house, right on their heels. Get upstairs! Gray called to the others as they followed his lead and made a beeline for the staircase. They quickly ran up the steps as they heard the crashing of the dinosaur behind them. Once they had reached the top, they looked out to see it making its way up the stairs after them. Underneath it, the stairs made an unusual sound as a large red devil-like dinosaur stomped up the steps, its mouth dripping blindly with saliva like a rabies-infested canine. It suddenly started to fall through the flooring below it. The staircase had given way underneath it. The dinosaur roared in frustration as it tumbled to the ground. Immediately after it had hit the ground, it scrambled back to its feet, gave him a gray stare with its ghost-like eyes. As if it had realized it couldn't reach them from down there, it snorted in anger and turned around to sprint back out where it had broken in. The trail of its destructive chase left behind. The three of them watched as its shadow disappeared from view, the flickering light outside showing it until it was gone. Gray gave a sigh of relief as he put his arms around Jen, holding her as she trembled from fright. Are you okay? Gray, Jen said scared. That was the Carno we saw from the news report. What? Its eyes were white. It had hit Gray at the moment. She was right. He remembered seeing the pictures taken of the dinosaurs responsible for those attacks in the past 5 days. Each of them had eyes of ghostly white, and the dinosaur that had just attacked them had eyes that just fit that description. Whatever. Zack breathed as he wiped away the blood on his forehead that had been caused by him being thrown through the glass door. It can't get to us up here. We're safe. So quickly it happened. Like being shot out of a catapult, the object burst through the wall. The contour roared as it clawed its way into the house. It was right behind them, staring right at them with its pupil-less eyes. The three of them looked back at it and then ran back to the rooms of the staircase. It was either they stay there or get crushed by its wildly snapping jaws. In only a matter of seconds, they decided. They jumped. Once getting back on their feet on the bottom floor, they saw the Carno pushing its way through the room that was so smaller than itself. It glared down at them and snarled. Breaking through the ground around it, it began to advance in their direction. "Run!" Zach yelled as he and the others bolted towards the front door. As fast as they could, they sprinted towards the street as if they were running a marathon. They dared not look back as they knew the Carno was most likely still in pursuit. The lights on both sides of the road were still operational, thank goodness. "Help!" Zach called out. "Somebody! Help!" There had to have been someone in the neighborhood who heard them. They must have been aware of the dinosaur loose in their midst. There was something alive watching them. They had hoped it was a person. They called to it again to get its attention. Those before them made their blood run ice cold. 10 feet tall, ghostly-eyed, was a Dilophosaurus. The dinosaur brought up its terrifying neck and squealed loudly, and then snapped its neck swiftly, sending a glob of spit on the gray shirt. "Look out!" Gray yelled. "It's venom!" The Dilophosaur leapt forward in a single bound and knocked Jen off the ground. It snapped its fish's jaws on her arm, causing her to scream in pain. With a hooting snarl, the dinosaur turned its body in an attempt to pull it from its socket. Gray and Zach began to yell and throw whatever was closest to them at it, trying to deter it from the attack. It gave no mind to them, however, continuing to yank at Jan's arm. But then something happened. A log the size of its head flew through the air and hit it square in the side, knocking it back. Zach and Gray looked and saw who it was who threw it, saving Jan's arm. Barry. They both remembered this man from when they were on the island. He was the man with the raptors. He was friends with Owen. Barry stood by a motorcycle as he stared at the Dilophosaur, which stood back up and snarled at him. "Children, stand back." He did not look at the three others as they watched him shot. The Dilophosaur squinted its eyes white before spitting its venom out. Barry ducked away as he picked up a large stick and swung it at it. The reptile pounced forward, jaws open and blood soaking its fangs. But before it could snap them around his neck, Barry swung hard like a baseball bat. It struck the dinosaur square on the side, sending it into the bushes and rolling down the hill behind. He then turned to the three young adults. Zach and Gray helped Jan back up as she panted from her injury. "It will not stay gone for long," Barry said as he looked at where he sent the Dilophosaur flying. "You must get your friend in my sidecon. Hurry!" As he sent Jen into Barry's sidecon, they heard the roar of the Carnotaur not far away. It had broken out of the ruins of their house and was on its way. That, coupled with the Dilophosaur, gave them enough reason to get out of there with their new savior. But to where? They did not know.